It's Guys Guy Radio. Here's your host, Robert Manni.
And welcome to Guys Radio. This is your host, Robert Manni, welcoming you to the show. And we've got a great one today. We've got a celebrity trainer from L.A., Alec Penix is going to be on the show, and he's written a book along with co-writer Myatt Murphy. It's called 7 Sundays, A Faith, Fitness, and Food Plan for Lasting Spiritual and Physical Change. And it's a really interesting book because it converges working out, diet, wellness, and spirituality together. And I don't know if anybody's done that exactly how Alec has. So looking forward to our conversation. And, wellness and working out, big in Southern California, of course. Big in a lot of areas, and it's always been big with me. For some reason, I've always been into athletics. I've always enjoyed working out. Some people, they just don't like to work out. I enjoy it. I like to sweat. I like to get out there and run. My entire life has been built around physical activities. I think it's so important to, put your feet to the earth outside, to breathe in that fresh air and to be active. So here I am in New York City. As I had mentioned in other shows, we're going to be moving out to San Diego in a couple of months. But here in the city, I have walked in the years I've been here, I've walked every inch of Manhattan, I think, over the years. And it's been great because it's great fitness and it's great to discover all the different areas of New York City and Manhattan. And it's just wonderful to be outdoors. No matter, you don't want to do it in the freezing cold rain, of course, but in any other weather, it's actually fabulous. And I've always enjoyed it. I started out working out as a kid. I played baseball from the moment I could put a glove on. I played soccer. I played football. In high school, I wrestled. I played soccer. I played baseball. And I started doing push-ups. I was inspired by Frank Robinson. Remember the baseball player? He recently passed. He was on the Baltimore Orioles, the Cincinnati Reds, and then he was the first African-American manager of the Cleveland Indians in the American League. And he used to do push-ups all the time. He didn't lift weights. And I've always been a big believer that using your body weight is probably the best way to exercise. I do believe in weights and resistance training, but I think using your body weight, you can do it anywhere. And it's less stress on the joints, etc. So I started doing push-ups when I was probably about, 9 or 10 years old. And I continued to do them almost daily until about 2 months ago. I took a little bit of a break. But I've been doing between 50 and 75 at a clip every day, just about every day, for decades and decades now. And it's always kept me physically fit. And I really enjoy them. It's like fun. And it's a good test every day to see how my body's feeling. And I do believe, as Alec's going to talk about, is that there is a mind, body, and spiritual connection when we work out. I think it's really important to take care of your physical body and really be into wellness. A lot of people aren't into it. They just, they have sometimes some folks have problems with, their knees or their hips or whatever. And I'm a boomer. And I'm the only guy I know out of all my friends who still really works out a lot and who runs, and I don't ride the golf cart. I like to walk, but it's amazing what happens as we age. And what I've learned is over time, along with using your body weight, doing things like push-ups and running. I got into running. I was a soccer player, so I ran around a lot, but I didn't get into like running until I moved to New York back in the 80s. And I was dating this girl, and she was a fantastic runner, and we used to run around Central Park. And finally, by following her, I learned to run the 6.2 mile outer loop of Central Park, and it is one heck of a workout. And I still do it now, and it's never gotten any easier because it takes about an hour. It's all hills, and it's really fantastic for you, and it's exhilarating. And sometimes I feel like I'm just leaving my body because of the endorphins as I get about 3/4 of the way done with the running. And I've kept up the running ever since, and I've run 3 marathons, 2 in New York, 1 down the Jersey Shore. And it's interesting too, because when you run marathons, every marathon is different, and your body behaves differently. My last marathon, I was in the best shape I've ever been in my life. I was about 49 when I ran it, and I had the worst race ever. I was thinking maybe it was because the night before somebody made me dinner, a woman friend, she made me pasta, and I gave her a Reiki session, which is hands-on healing, sending energy through from the crown, taking energy in the crown chakra and out your hands. But anyhow, I think I depleted my energy by doing that because I was bonked out of the race by about 13 miles, and I was in the middle of Brooklyn, and I had to run 13 more miles, and my body started breaking down. I felt every little tweak, whether it was my back, my meniscus in my left knee, cramps, everything. And I just muscled my way through it. But my body said, and then my blood sugar started to bonk. And it's the first time that ever happened. Afterwards, I had to start eating like jam right out of a jar to get my sugar back up. But my body told me, and it's important that we listen to our bodies. My body said, hey, that's it. No more marathons. You want to run a half marathon? You can do that, but no more full marathons. So I learned about that, and I guess you could say I kind of learned the hard way. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I ran 3 marathons. That's enough for me. Some people run them into their 90s. That's not going to be me. My body said, you did enough. So now I do my push-ups. I do the elliptical a lot. I still run Central Park. And I do pull-ups also, traditional chin-ups with the hands facing out. And it's a great workout. And I also do what's called, I discovered, I was jumping rope for a couple of years, and then I started to feel it on my skeleton, and my body was saying, don't do that anymore. So I stopped, and I felt a lot better. And I started doing this workout. Dan Millman, the guy who wrote The Peaceful Warrior, he wrote this book called Everyday Enlightenment, and he has a section in there with the 4-minute Peaceful Warrior workout. And it's got 15 different exercises that you can do pretty quickly. A lot of it's for stretching the spine, just getting yourself into opening up your energy centers. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. So I've been doing that every day for the past year, as well as I do my elliptical, and I do a couple of other things. But that's it. And I make sure I get my rest too, because if you want to build your body up, you need rest. So it's a combination. I feel it's like a spiritual thing, whether I'm running in the park, whether I'm walking around New York, whether I'm running down the Jersey Shore on the boardwalks there. It's really beautiful. Whatever I'm doing, when it's physical, I feel there's a spirituality to it, and it helps me mentally, keeps me fresh, and it helps me physically because I like to take care of my body. I like to look good and feel good. It helps me with my diet because my body then craves clean food, and I believe it connects me with Source, with the universe, and God, if you will. So I am a big believer in working out, and I know Alec, who's going to be on in a couple moments, he's going to teach us through his book, 7 Sundays, about faith, fitness, and food plan for lasting spiritual and physical change. And it's a real good one, and I highly recommend you hang out and listen to our talk because it's going to be a good one. And here we are on Guys Radio, and we're going to be back in a couple of moments. Thanks so much.
Robert Manny's The Guy's Guide to Love is a fast-paced tale of flawed men and savvy women competing for love, sex, power, and money in the city where they play for keeps. It's the men's successor to Sex and the City. The Guy's Guide to Love is a sexy romp through the fast-moving, high-stakes world of Madison Avenue. Available now on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
You know, I'm a fitness guy and a wellness guy, and you know I like to stay in shape, and I've been doing things for probably 30, 40 years, and I just constantly stay at it. I've adapted my routine over the years, but I'm always interested in getting a fresh outlook, fresh thinking about how to work out, and I love the fact that somebody's finally written a book that's connected working out and wellness with spirituality, because I think they are connected. And Alec Penix has done that. So let me tell you a little bit about Alec. He's a celebrity trainer in LA. Soon after he was saved, and we're going to talk about that, God put the intention in his heart to combine faith and fitness so he could share his calling. He's worked with a lot of top athletes and celebrities, including, you must remember, Gabby Douglas, the Olympic gold medalist, Natasha Bedingfield, actor-singer Aaron Tveit, and Derek and Julianne Howe. And he's also, I think he's worked with, there's a blurb on the book from Shawn Mendes, I believe, and also Kathy Lee Gifford. And he's worked on international concert tours, musical productions, on the set, and music, TV, film, to help prepare his clients to look, feel, and perform at their best. He lives in L.A. Welcome to the show, Alec.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. Listen, I really enjoyed the book, and as I said, I love the fact that it's fresh because you combined working out, wellness, and spirituality. And you had your own kind of aha moment where you heard God speak to you in your head saying, basically, it's time to be the man I've called you to be. I think it was after a night of tequila or whatever. Tell us about what happened, because you're you're in LA, and there's a lot of I'm in New York, so I know there's a lot of good stuff that goes on, and there's a lot of naughty things that go on in our towns.
Yeah, you got that right. I usually tell people, because the night before I got saved, we were out having a good time, and I always tell people to read in between the lines, and I think that you already have on that one. So so I was in Mexico celebrating and also in a wedding with one of my clients, Carlos and Alexa Penavega. He's from Big Time Rush, and she's a actress in LA for her whole life. But I was, the night before, we were enjoying our time being there, and it wasn't just about that night, but it's a longer, detailed journey much before that. But the next morning, or I should say evening, I woke up and I was lying there and feeling terrible, as you can imagine. But also on top of that, I was probably in the darkest time in my life, and I tell people that at this point I was spiritually malnourished. And this was the first time I really ever prayed out loud. I had no relationship with God. I never went to church when I was younger. And so I never even opened up the Bible previous to that. So when I prayed out loud, like you already said, I asked for help, and God responded. And I tell people this, and they think that you must have been really hungover, Alec. And I go, maybe so, but I still heard it, and then all good things came from it. But it was, God said, that it was time to become the man I've called you to be. And from there, I just was been on fire for this spiritual journey of almost attacking it as if I attacked the gym, or look at it as training my body. I look at the spiritual growth, training my mind, and expanding my knowledge, and expanding my thought process, and never leveling out, always trying to better myself. And it has really, I think, defined me now. And I think that's who I've always been called to be. But I think before that, I was maybe too afraid to step in. And that's really God that gave me the courage to start stepping out of my comfort zone. Okay, let's get two things out of the way real quick, because I want to ask the questions that I think if I was listening to the show, I'd want to know the answers to. And one is, how did your clientele, because you have a popular celebrity clientele, and they're exposed to a lot of different things. Once you kind of turned the corner and went towards the spiritual side, and they heard you probably communicating a little bit differently, I would assume, how did they take to that? Did you have anybody give you any pushback on that? I think that initially, when I first got saved, I was maybe a little bit rambunctious, a little bit, and overzealous. And then I kind of grew into my faith, but not really for the most part. I always had a good understanding when it came to just how to communicate with somebody next to me. It was, it's part of my job. So I never really wanted to force my faith onto somebody. I really just wanted to connect with them. And so everything about when it came to my clientele and working with them, it was more of an organic relationship. And it was not about trying to convert them to be a believer. It was more about, being connected with them and being a support system in their life. Great. And then you talk about Christ a lot in the book. And I take a spiritual unfoldment class myself, and I grew up Catholic. And I think a lot of people get confused about the whole concept of Christ and Christ the man. And there's talk to us a little bit about do you see the difference between the Christ consciousness and strictly believing in Jesus himself? Because some people, there's a lot of different religions that we have in our country, and particularly in international cities like LA and New York, where not everybody's going to say, well, Jesus Christ is my savior. That's okay for you, but it might not work for me. But actually, there's something else called the Christ consciousness, which anybody, regardless of a religion, can tap into, because it's not specifically the man; it's more about consciousness. Yeah, it's about the thought process,
Right.
That Jesus talked about, and I'm more because I've grown involved. It's more about that Christ consciousness. It's about in elevating your own thought process and knowing that you actually, the way God created us and created everything, is that we have much more control over our life, free will, and the way we think, and the way we pursue our lives, and the way we treat other people. I think that some people often overlook that, and I would have never known that if it wasn't for my curiosity and to want to know more. But at the beginning, it was all about Jesus. Like, I believe in Jesus, and as I grew into my own spirituality, it's for me, it's hard to not love everyone and say that, right, well, you can't be included in this group because you're not a believer in this. And I think God is something, God or Christ consciousness is something that embodies the inclusivity of all people, in the love of all people.
No, very well stated. Thank you. Because it's important, because Jesus himself, he wasn't really a religious guy. He wasn't like pro specific religions, and people quickly forget that he was actually, when he was alive, he was Jewish. So everybody gets really confused nowadays, and they're like, well, I'm Christian and you're not, and I believe in Jesus and you're not, so I'm saved and you're not. And it's not really about all of that, and we very quickly start choosing sides here in the way we live today. So I'm so glad that you look at this as something that's inclusive, and it's about, really, the consciousness is love. So fantastic. So you broke up the book is called 7 Sundays, A Faith, Fitness, and Food Plan for Lasting Spiritual and Physical Change. And it takes us through 7 weeks, really, or is it 6 weeks with 7 Sundays?
6 weeks.
Okay, and each week there's a theme, and I love how you put it together, because there's some self-assessment. It's like any good workout plan. You kind of have to know who you are and what you're capable of, and then each step of the way you add a little bit more and a little bit more, and then you take some things away, some of the foods that aren't good for you. Talk to us a little bit about, and take your time, about what the program's all about and how you sculpted it.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the time, I look back, Steve Jobs said a quote that says, you can't connect the dots until you look back. And I realized I get maybe on a practical level and a conscious level, I didn't really quite realize what I was trying, even happened to me. And I think that through this whole process of 7 Sundays, it's really about the reconditioning of the body and the mind, and empowering yourself. But I believe that we all have unlimited potential, and I think that the way we approach a journey is so important for our success. And as you mentioned, it's a step-by-step process. Each week has a different theme. Even within each day has a different theme. And I think that when we focus on what we have to do today, it really empowers us, because then we take one step at a time. And I think we look too far ahead at the destination where we want to go, and we get a little bit overwhelmed, and we forget what we have to do today. And when you look at it at a day-to-day basis, it's broken down within the acronym I picked called CHOSEN, and that really, you can really separate that into 2 elements. You have a spiritual side and you have a physical side. The spiritual side, it's CHO, which stands for conceding, which is a way of just acknowledging your Christ consciousness, your spirituality, activating your faith. And then you have the honoring element, which I bring in different scriptures each day according to the theme of the day. And this is really about, like I said, reconditioning the mind, getting our mind in the same level that maybe the Christ would have, and sort of elevating your way of thinking, retraining your mind just as if you were training your body. And then the really cool part that I like is the offering. Most exercise and diet books out there are more for your own personal edification, which is fine. But then I think with this, having it in a way where you can also empower those around you, I think it's a really cool twist to it. And I think that it really embodies it's not just about empowering ourselves, but about really helping those around us and connecting to those on a deeper level in our lives. Okay. So that's really the spiritual side. And so on the physical side, this is really the 3 pillars that I approach on the physical element, which is, people always ask me, so is it like 90% nutrition and 10% exercise? And I was like, well, if that were the case, then man, I shouldn't have eaten those chocolate cookies last night. But
Right.
I really break it down in a third of sleep, exercise, and nutrition. And with that, it's a step-by-step process that where I believe that anyone can really approach that, even is on a beginner level, that can really attack these three elements and build off of them and to empower themselves and to take that next step and create a lifestyle. So it's not something, exercise and having a healthy lifestyle is not something you have to do, but it really shifts to something that you want to do because you see the impact it has on your own life.
Great. And it can be customized. So you have the three pillars: sleep, exercise, and nutrition. What, from your experience as a trainer, what are the mistakes? What are the mistakes that people make in those three pillars? Not getting enough rest, overdoing too much exercise, maybe nutrition, too much sugar, whatever. What do you find that are the common pitfalls that people fall into when they're trying to get themselves in top shape and stay there?
I think it's really about finding a balance within these three and trying to figure out what works best for you. I think too often we get too far ahead of ourselves. See, the body absolutely loves rhythm, and most of us have trained our bodies because of the inconsistencies and the fad diets and the ups and downs of, I'll go hard in the gym for a month and then I burn myself out and then I don't find myself in the gym for another month. And so it's these inconsistencies where you're training your body and putting it in survival mode. And when you create a lifestyle that's attainable and where you create a sense of momentum, and that is like exercising on a regular basis, getting yourself on a sleep schedule where you're trying to go to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time.
Yep.
Nutrition, developing a food schedule where you're trying to eat. You create this sense of rhythm with that as well, and a structure within that. And it's not so. It's actually when you break it down, it's quite simple, and it's not super complex to understand. Anyone can understand it, but it's really about understanding how your body works, and that once we get our bodies out of that survival mode and once we start training our body to start working for us, that's when the magic begins to happen, and you start feeling a sense of that you can do it, and that this is your lifestyle, and that. So everyone's a little bit different, and everyone is going to have to find what that balance is and what that looks like for them, and then they can move forward from there.
Okay. One thing you mentioned. Let's talk a little bit about each one of those three pillars. We'll start with nutrition because it is very important. If it's probably, I'm going to take a guess, 50%. Abs are made in the kitchen, as they say, not in the gym, and I think it's true. And I put myself on a program last year where I gave up a different food for 52 weeks. I'm actually writing a book about it. It's called The Process of Elimination Diet. And nice. I learned about, Alec, my cravings. And I just I gave up whatever I craved. And I found out like, wow, sugar. And then once I gave up all the sugars, it was kind of out of my system. You have some foods on here. They're called faithless foods. Talk to us a little bit about where people mess up in terms of their food selections and also things like portion sizes and where they can do a better job and keeping it simple, like you say.
Well, before I even start talking to most of my clients, I actually get them on a structure diet. I take it step by step because I've repeating myself here, but I think that you throw too much at somebody at once. They lose. Yeah. See, you don't understand. Like I can tell by talking to you. You say that you've eliminated all your cravings, and people don't really know the power of their mind. It sounds like you do, and I think a lot of people don't believe that they can control their cravings. They can get rid of sugar, or they can get rid of those things. And so, what I have them do is I develop a food structure first, that I love and I have it in my book. It's called intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm.
and you're really getting them on a structure, that rhythm that I talked about, where they're fasting for 16 hours. I base it off of food curfew. So if you stop eating at 7 p.m., you'll eventually start your next meal or your first meal the next day at 11 a.m. And then you have an 8-hour period that you can consume. I say first start out with 3 meals within that 8-hour period, and then build a rhythm. I've seen, without even telling people what to change in their food, just by implementing this, I've had clients lose anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really impactful. And then once I go from there, once they feel empowered and motivated, then we can really start breaking down how we're going to approach the types of foods they eat. So what we're going to start bringing in and what the types of foods that we're going to start taking out.
Okay. As part of that, a lot of people, and you mentioned it in the book, about always having that water on hand. Most Americans, I've read that 80% of Americans are dehydrated. And when you work out, you need even more water. And people don't realize it. And you see some people walking around with the water jugs, but not that many. And we really do need a lot of water. What is your philosophy about hydration, Alec?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, what's the percentage of the body's made up of water? It's what I think it's. I mean, it doesn't matter.
It's like 80. It's like around 80% or something like that. But it's very high, surprisingly high.
Exactly, and it tells you right there the importance of water. When I first wake up in the morning, I drink a warm glass of water. I chug it, and what this does is it really just activates my body. And what I've noticed when I'm dehydrated, I'm actually not. I don't have I'm kind of my mind and the way foggy, I think it's foggy, right? Mm-hmm. And some people also, when that happens, they're not aware that it's actually dehydration that's causing that fogginess. And so that's always my indicator. But by me incorporating that glass of water in the morning, it actually activates me. And then it also gets me in a good rhythm for the rest of the day. Just continue on this process of drinking water. Some people turn to coffee or whatever for the first thing in the morning, and it puts you in a constant state of dehydration for the rest of the day. Yeah, and so I'm a firm believer in hydration, 100%.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree with you. I actually do the same thing. I have an organic lemon, and I cut it in fourths, and I squeeze it through a strainer, and I drink that water every morning. It makes a big difference. It almost feels like psychologically that you're waking up all your organs. You're like irrigating them and getting off to a good start, and you don't have that morning fog. And then staying away from the coffee. Coffee to me, and I'd love to get your philosophy on this, is it's like a trap, because you take the caffeine because you're tired, and then you need more caffeine, and then when you go to sleep at night, then you have trouble sleeping because you have too much caffeine, and you wake up in the morning tired, and it's the same thing. And so I got off of caffeine a couple of years ago. I've never felt better. I don't miss it at all. Once in a blue moon, I'll end up with a coffee that has caffeine for some reason or whatever. But I don't drink a lot of coffee anyhow. But avoiding caffeine, I think, is pretty important. What's your thoughts on that, Alec?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're exactly right when it comes to the people turning, like when you start drinking caffeine or coffee. You will want to turn more to it because you want that pick me up. But what we don't realize is that we're actually going further and further away from the type of emotional and physical state that we want at that point in time. And actually, like you said, if you were just to be in this constant hydration mode, your ability to think and react and to articulate, doing all those things that we all need to do, and just to function on a high level, just through drinking water can do miracles. And so with me, I do like drinking my macchiato or my espresso macchiato. But every now and then it is sort of my treat. But it's not something that I, whenever I feel like I have to have it, that's when I know that I have to, like you said earlier, start to refrain from that, because I always want to have dominion over the foods I eat, over caffeine and all those things. I don't want those to have power over me.
And that's part of the spirituality of the program, and I love that. One last thing on nutrition, and then we can move on. We'll get into the different chapters. But portion size, you mentioned that in the book, and I think, in America, portion size. Everybody wants these huge portions, and it's really, you look at these yogis who are like 90 years old, and they eat rarely. Like some of them eat
Yeah.
like once a week, or at most. And we really don't need as much food as we intake, and we really go at it. So talk to us about that and the dangers of eating too much.
Well, the one thing about eating too much is, like, you want to talk about feeling groggy and feeling gross. I mean, you fill your belly up with a bunch of food. There's nothing. I mean, the first thing I want to do is go take a nap, and I think that the great thing about 7 Sundays is that once you start going deep and start connecting to your body and start asking those deep questions and having that sense of spirituality connected to your journey, you really start to get in tune with how the way your body feels. And so whenever, for me, because I've been going through this process, I know right away when I eat too much, because I'm not functioning the way I need to function. So like just recently, I have oatmeal and protein and such in the morning, and I realized that I was eating too much of it. And so instead of continuing that process, I actually broke it in half. And so I ate it a couple hours later. What happens when I eat too much food is that it almost feels like I'm flushed. Like all the blood flushes from my brain and from my limbs and goes straight to my stomach. And whenever that happens, I get tired. And when I'm training somebody, I can't get tired. I have to be on my game. And so I know instantly what I have to do. And so I cut my portion sizes in the morning and broke it in half. And now I have an extra meal, but I feel 1,000% better. Portion sizes are a huge thing in this country, especially where we are going over the top, and we're sort of we have this sense of overconsumption. But we continue to expand our stomachs, and the food takes control over us. And a lot of us aren't even conscious or aware that what we're doing is actually harming us.
Okay, it's Guys Radio. Our special guest is Alec Penix. The book is called 7 Sundays, A Faith, Fitness, and Food Plan for Lasting Spiritual and Physical Change. I'm Robert Manny, your host. Let's talk a little bit about exercise, Alec, because, people at different ages, they can do different exercises. I'm a boomer now, and I've learned that I had to adapt my workout regime over the years. I do more stretching. I do the Dan Millman, the guy who wrote Peaceful Warrior. He has a 4-minute workout, and I've dialed it up to like 10 for myself. But I do that every day. It stretches my spine. It does a lot of things that normally I wouldn't be interested in. And I used to jump rope a lot. And then my skeletal structure was like, you know what? You don't want to do this anymore. I ran marathons, and at the last marathon I ran, my body said, enough of this. And a lot of people just stop. They don't do anything. But it's important that you can keep working out into your 90s if you tailor your workouts. When you work with your clients, do you find that they struggle sometimes with what they can or can't do and use what they can't do as an excuse to give up?
Yeah, I think that there are some people that are on the other side who want to go buck wild, and I have to cool them down. I'm like, hey, we'll get there. Just relax. And then you have the other people who are fearful of feeling sore in pain, in a sense where they're not used to taking their body to a certain place. They feel like they're actually harming their body when they feel that sense of soreness, and it's really their conditioning that has to be fixed. And that's, as a trainer, that is, it's my job to say that, no, it's okay to feel those things. So it's really, you're right. It has to be this sense of you have to cater to the client that you're working with. And it's totally true. And I want to talk briefly about my own experience.
Please.
And from last March, I wanted to test the waters and see what it's all about in terms of, I wanted to try to work out every day for a year, and I'm almost done that. And I have worked out for every single day. Wow. I'm not saying that to impress you, but to impress upon you that when there's a shift, like you said, and when there's a shift in the way you perceive exercise, it all changes. Now exercise is a tool to shape my mind and emotions. If I don't exercise the first thing in the morning, then I'm not going to be the person that I need to be in order to change, to help change the world and change the people in a positive way around me. And that means sometimes I can only work out for 15 to 20 minutes. But as long as I'm getting a little sweat going and like I feel like my endorphins are kicking in, then that's a workout for me. It's not like this long, arduous hour and a half workout when you're there and fatiguing one muscle group over and over and over again. It's a shift. It's exercise is about, it's a different idea for me. And once that happened, now it's like I have to exercise, because if I don't, I know what I would feel like otherwise. And so I think it's our job for people who love fitness and wellness is to open them up to this idea that exercise can be a tool for something much greater. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that you have shifted your own workout routine to something that best suits you now where you are. And now look at you said you do something every single day.
Yes.
And can you imagine what your life would be like without that?
I hate the days that I for some reason, like I picked up some bug like about a week ago, and I was flat out, and I was like, I can't do it. I had done this 4-minute workout along with what the other stuff I do, but I always make sure if I'm traveling or whatever, and I can only get something quick in, I do this short workout, and it's great. And I feel like if I don't do it, there's something wrong. But that's me. I'm being tough on myself, but it's a good thing because I feel so great when I do it. And when you do something like you're doing, Alec, you do it every day for a year. And I was almost up to a year, and I just got flat out sick, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
but it makes a difference. And the discipline there's a spirituality to the discipline of working out and being mindful of your diet and what you're taking into your body and your thoughts and how you're treating other people. So I love the program you put together. Let's talk about the third pillar, and then we'll get into some of the chapters. But sleep, a lot of people in the United States in particularly, they have trouble sleeping and they don't get enough sleep. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, sleep is where it all happens. And I think that sleep is so important, yes, to the physical body, but also to the mind, the spiritual element and the emotional element as well. And when we don't create those healthy sleeping habits, we are not in control of the way we think and the way we react in life. And so when we start creating those healthy habits, getting yourself on a sleeping schedule, and it doesn't have to be like, all right, tonight I'm going to start sleeping an hour earlier. I mean, you have to, like, it's in increments. You have to go at it a little by little until you get to a point where you feel like you're in a good place. But once you start creating that sense of structure, you begin to take power over your life, and you start making more powerful decisions the next day. But on a very physical element, the sleep is such an important part in terms of rebuilding your cells and rebuilding your muscles and all those things that are important in terms of being the best person that you can possibly be. So sleep is often overlooked. You can go and work out extremely hard, and if you don't get proper sleep, you are really actually hindering yourself more than you're helping yourself. Mm-hmm. It's such a huge element in terms of your progress mentally and physically that if it is overlooked, then you are slowing down your ability to improve dramatically. And so it doesn't mean that you won't see some improvement over time, but I promise you, if you develop a food structure a sleeping structure, that you will your ability to see improvement will increase tenfold.
Okay, let's get back to the specifics in the book a little bit, because I think you walk the reader through a very interesting path. You start out with each of the Sundays. The first one is about kind of, I guess you'd call it self-assessment, and then you get into elevation, and then purification, adaptation, glorification, dedication, completion. Talk to us a little bit about how that's all strung together and what is the thinking behind the process that you've laid out, without giving the whole book away, obviously.
Yeah,
I want to promote the book.
Yes. It all really, like you said, it all, and I've talked about this. I talk about this a lot, and it's about breaking it down to segments, taking one day at a time, then taking 1 week at a time. And each week with a theme, there is an idea in there that you have just completed the previous week, and now you're ready to sort of increase in intensity. That's on a spiritual level, and that's also on a physical level. So as you begin this journey each and every week, that the idea here is, and the philosophy here is that we test you a little bit more and more throughout those times, and those themes are there to remind you of the process, of the journey, of what we're trying, the vision, and what we're trying to accomplish this week, and to help you keep focused and to stay focused on the grind. And so, yes, it's about this incremental progress within each week. And towards the end, we bring in the Daniel fast, and that's, we would never do that in the first week, right? The first week is really about bringing awareness to your eating schedule, into your eating habits. And once you get that awareness, then you're able to make certain changes. You're like, you couldn't believe that you're eating 3,000 calories. You thought you were eating 1,500.
Right.
And so once you have that, once you see those things, then you're able to start making those powerful decisions. And then towards the end, with the intermittent fasting is in the week prior, then you have the Daniel fast after. It's like, you're ready to do this. You have accomplished everything that we've asked you to accomplish. You have empowered yourself. Now you have this sense of belief that you are able to start digging a little deeper into maybe some of those wounds that we have, that we all connected emotionally when it comes to food, and to really start honing that in and taking control over the way you eat. And that's really the idea.
Got it. Let's talk about the spirituality a little bit. Where do you want the reader to be when they get to the 8th Sunday? I think, my take on it is, by the discipline that you put into the exercise, the sleep, the nutrition, becomes a spiritual act. And it does bring you closer to God. And then you have to, on top of that, you have to, recognize, and you have to be thankful, and you have to work in your own affirmations, prayer, whatever, every day. I base it on appreciation. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I get myself into spiritual alignment as best I can, and I start with appreciation. And before I go to sleep at night, I do the same thing. Try to review the day and just be really thankful for all of the blessings that that we so easily overlook every day, and we have it a lot better than we think we do. I know a lot of people have it tough, but if you're lucky enough to be healthy and you have a roof over your head, you're up in the game. So what are your thoughts about where you want people to be with the spirituality, and how they can weave that into the practice through the discipline?
Well, you said it. It's discipline, that the same way that we have to apply discipline when it comes to exercise and nutrition and sleep, that you apply that same method when it comes to spirituality. Like, whenever you want to connect to your source, it takes a lot of discipline. And I know people hate that word, but it's true. And so I want there to be an understanding once you get towards the end, is that, you have to actively pursue and make it a habit to connect with your source each and every day. And once you connect to your source, you're able to live in a different state. I don't, however you want to put that, is if it's in a state of love or a higher energy field or
frequency, whatever, right?
Yeah, it's like, but it's true. And once you start living in that in that field, you will begin becoming a magnet, an attraction for abundance and prosperity and love and all these great things. And you've now conditioned your mind to look at life through a different lens. And you don't necessarily pay attention to the bad as much anymore. You start focusing on what you said, that you start beginning to appreciate. When you appreciate, you increase your value in every sense of the word. And so it's really opening people up and realizing that it takes an effort to connect. And it also, through that connection, we're able to live life in a much greater level than ever before.
Okay. When you go to, when you make the move towards a more spiritually directed lifestyle, a lot of times we are challenged along the way because the light does attract certain things, and we get challenged. Have you found, and I know for myself, I use now, I've been taught through my classes, I use the God's divine white light of protection, God's divine white light of protection in every situation. And it really works. Have you felt yourself challenged at all spiritually as you've gone on this path to be a better person and raise your vibration, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, it's become my obsession to discipline myself in this area, even more so than when it comes to the gym now. And I think this is the next phase in my life. But I go. I think with this book, even if you read it, you can kind of tell where I was spiritually. In that really God was sort of, I think, comforting me and sort of helping me with my past and allowing me to perceive my past in a different way rather than being a victim. Now, how did my past help me and teach me to become the person I am today? And so these shifts, now it's really about how I can meet God halfway and empower myself, because God has given me free will. And once I started seeing that there's this relationship, this co-op where you connected with God in a way, it really began to change my life, and I began to see a lot more a connection, a lot more doors opening in my life, a lot more peace. Because no matter, even where I was, like I necessarily wasn't quite there in terms of the confidence I had in myself, and I really didn't quite believe in myself. And so that only God wasn't going to do that for me. I had to raise up my energy. I had to build myself up every single day to start living on it in a new level. And so it's been unbelievable.
All right. They say, Alec, there are no mistakes. So a lot of what we need to do, I think, maybe we can just end on a little bit of a spiritual discussion here, is we have to forgive ourselves. And then when we learn how to forgive ourselves, it's easier to forgive others. And one of the things that's so nice that you say in the book is about letting it go and kind of giving it up, let yourself be directed. And that doesn't mean, you still have the free will, but it's not trying to be the control freaks that most of us are, particularly in cities like New York and LA, where we really we squeeze things so hard that sometimes they slip through our hands. And I know for myself recently, I work to do things to kind of manifest and visualize and all of that. And I was kind of spoken to in my head, like you were, to say, does it have to be exactly your way, or are you willing to just let it go and let it happen the way it can happen and let us do it? And I said, yes. Okay, you do it. I'll do it however it is. It doesn't have to be exactly how I imagine things. And it was such a relief for me. Tell us about letting go and your experience with letting go and why that's an important thing.
Yeah, I mean, when we let go, we ultimately are connecting ourselves to the source. We're getting that sense of peace and calm. And we realize that I think there has to be, when we let go, there's a universal intelligence. There's a God. There's a source that wants to work and help us. But like you said, when we try to control it the whole way through, we block those blessings. We don't even allow those opportunities to manifest themselves because we are acting as God. And it's really hard. And it's something that I'm still working on to this day is sort of creating this sense of balance, knowing what I need to do today and what I can do and bring my best effort forth. And also what I'm allowing the God to do and what I need and understanding what to give to him or to the source and to sort of feel it out and to go with it and to definitely I keep on bringing this up, but balance is extremely important. And it's like people have this there's this idea when we surrender, it's like we surrender completely and we don't do anything. We become lazy. It's not necessarily, letting go is not necessarily that. Letting go is allowing this intelligence to guide you and to give you a better direction that maybe you would have not taken otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you've done a fantastic job. I think you're getting great guidance, and I love the work you're doing. I think you did a great job. The name of the book is 7 Sundays, A Faith, Fitness, and Food Plan for Lasting Spiritual and Physical Change. The author with us now is on Guys Radio is Alec Penix, and he also wrote this with Myatt Murphy, so we should give him a shout out because I'm sure he worked hard on it. Yes. One last question for you, and then I want you to tell everybody where they can find more about you and the book. But what's a nice first step people can take to make their lives better, to kind of get them on that track, to be in a position to take on your program?
Well, they can buy the book. No, I just
it's always a good step.
Yeah, taking your first step, taking action, getting. You have to get unstuck. You have to make the first move, and whatever that is, if that is going and knowing you don't even have to go to the gym. You can just go walk outside and start going for a walk. I mean, little things, and until you can start building off of that. Even like as easy as it is to change something. Maybe pushing away that chocolate cake that you may have tonight, and say and reward yourself because of that. Say, you know what, I have the power within me to make this even bigger changes in your life. So I'm so glad that you brought this up, because I think it's so important for anyone's success when they ever want to make a change in their life, is that start small, but acknowledge your rewards, acknowledge your overcomings that you've just done. So I think that just getting unstuck and taking a first step is so important.
Okay, tell us where everybody can find the book and more about you, Alec, and any social media.
Yes, you can get the book on Amazon. You can also go to my website, which is www.alecpenix.com. And then also you can get my book at Barnes and Noble. And then I'm very active on Instagram. So if anyone has any questions about diet or spirituality or whatever, they can find me at Alec the Trainer.
Fantastic. Great job, Alec. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the book. I loved our conversation. And you're a guy's guy. So thanks for being on Guys Radio.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Hang in there, everybody. We're going to be right back.
There's never been a better time for men to be whoever they want to be, yet it's never been less clear who men really are. Guys Guy Radio, starring author Robert Manni, is on KCAA every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Whether it's relationships, sex, wellness, or spirituality, join Robert as he interviews the experts about how men and women can be at their best. Guys Guy Radio. Better men, better world.
All right, that was a great talk with fitness expert and author Alec Penix. 7 Sundays is the book again, and it's all about the combination of spiritual, physical wellness, as well as the right diet and exercise, making the best out of your life. This is Guys Radio, the place where men and women can be at their best. Everyone wins. It all started with my novel, A Guy's Guide to Love. You can pick it up on Amazon. It's a rom-com. It's been called The Male Sex and the City. From there, we started robertmanni.com, MANNI.com, and there's all 350 blog posts there, everything about life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. And then we moved to Guys Radio. We've done over 350 podcasts. We've been on KCAA for a couple of months now. We're on every Wednesday at this time, 8 p.m. Pacific time, 106.5, 102.3 on FM 1050 AM. We're also on TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. And you can rate us, review us, and subscribe on iTunes. You listen to any of those podcasts as well as all the shows on KCAA streaming. So thanks for being with us. More to come. You can catch me also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we'll be back next week, same time, same place. And until then, like I always like to say, guys, finish first.